Hello there, in today's video, we're going to be looking at what to do if he returns in your life. Which will address the issue of why he's returning. And at the conclusion, you're going to be able to decide if he's the perfect person for you or not. Some people are said to be unaware of what they have until it is gone. But it doesn't mean they should get it back, does it? The fact is that some guys may leave and then return to your life. Or you may have left them and then they returned. And the issue becomes, what do you do when that happens? What else should you do? My name is Stephen Beko, and in this channel, I share knowledge relevant to advance in any aspect of your life. Whether you watch this channel for advice in your love life, or whether you're here because you appreciate the methods of thinking in general that we acquire from this channel, you're going to be able to apply this to whatever you want to achieve this year. So, let me break it down for you, and we'll get right into it, beginning with number 1. When a man returns to you, do not respond emotionally. What I have seen happen to so many women is that they have ghosted them. Whether you left him or he left you or you guys voluntarily split or whatever the issue was. When a man tries to reappear, there is just an emotional reaction. That emotion may lead you to let him back because you're lonely, or because he caught you at the perfect time and you prepared to listen to what he has to say. Or it might go the other way, with the emotions telling you to F him. How dare he try to come back? I'm not going to entertain him for a single second now. I am not saying right now whether letting him in or keeping him out is correct. What I mean is that your emotions should not rule your kind of decisions that you make. When the man returns, you must take a step back in the moment, in that particular day, and do whatever is necessary to ensure that you think it through properly. Some of you may argue, and it's not serious, and that if he didn't appreciate me at the first time, he should have remained out of your life. But I don't want you to jump right in, because, once again, I have seen cases where emotions indicated one thing, but when the lady took the time to analyze, she was able to look more deeply into the circumstances and see what needed to happen. And I'm going to lay out some of the possibilities for you. So instead of reacting emotionally, let yourself process. Now, if you have seen my videos, you know that I am all for intuition and never urge you to disregard it. I simply want you to make sure that your emotions don't take over the situation. So process the circumstances and appropriately appraise it. When a man returns, the second thing you should do is to make sure that you've gotten everything off your chest. Remember, I didn't want you to respond emotionally, because in some cases, I will say in most cases, there are things that you are unable to express, or you have not expressed in relation to this individual or what happened. Alright? Again, whether it's because he harms you, because you were terrified, or whatever the situation may be. And it's fine if you responded emotionally and closed the door. If you let him back too quickly without giving yourself a chance to vent, you will simply aggravate the situation. So please keep in mind that when I say get things off your chest, I don't mean that one-time disagreement that you had with him, or lashing out you did when you thought he mistreated you. I mean a chance to thoroughly flash things out. Because one of the difficulties that individuals face and they detach from someone is that they are still hanging on the emotions, the ideas, or sometimes that they need to release and not release. Those things create an attachment to the circumstance. Good or bad, and when I say good or bad, I mean whether the experience was beneficial to them or not. It generates a connection that becomes toxic. It makes things more difficult, and it makes it more difficult to see properly. Because, once again, not getting things off your chest leads to an emotional reaction. That's what contributes to distortion of your view in the circumstance and not comprehending what has to happen next. So, this is a fantastic opportunity to ensure, and we can't guarantee whether this will lead you to entertaining him or letting him back or ultimately keeping the door locked. It's just that you need to look at this as an opportunity to say your piece. Let me make sure I expel everything from my body that let go of those negative emotions from your spirit. This will be of great assistance to you as you advance in whatever direction that you need to. The next thing to do is to consider whether it's worth it to try to fix this if he comes back to you. So let's begin by asking if it's worth it. Before we continue, please hit the subscribe button right down here if you haven't already done so, and like this video to help me spread the word about what to do if he returns to your life. By doing so, YouTube will notify more people that the video is available. Thank you. Let's move forward. Listen to this brief tale. I know of a woman who was having problems with a man they were seeing. And that time he was really after her, but she resisted because, to be completely honest, her family and friends thought that he wasn't in her level. So she was into this guy, but she was concerned about his status, whether this was really a good fit, and other things, despite the fact that she felt there was a connection between them when they spoke. They felt that he wasn't good enough for her. As a result of her hesitation and the pressure from her family and friends, she refrained from giving this man the full embrace. In other words, he eventually reached a point where he stopped following her. He is no longer after her as we speak today. She's hurt by this, and I want to say, maybe a year or so later, let me make the statement. How now he now abandons the pursuit which hurts her. Yes, she was embracing him somewhat, but that wasn't right. I won't go into detail about that now, but it wasn't fair for her to keep rejecting him and then be upset of him when he gave up. He was at his wit's end, because a man can only take so much whether he loves you or not. I contend that when he does love you, his pain tolerance usually decreases. That's a myth. There's a myth out there that, in my opinion, that if she loves you, they'll keep making an effort. No. Frequently, the person who doesn't love you but simply has an unhealthy attachment to you has the drive to persevere through anything that you're facing, because they aren't deeply hurt by your rejection. They aren't as discouraged from trying as others would by it. If, however, there is a woman and you are trying to be this for a man you loved and he kept rejecting you, it will hurt you so much that you will eventually be unable to continue putting yourself out there. Simply because once more it hurts more than the person that aren't really into acting in that way. In any case, returning to the story, he finally gave up on her after pursuing her for years. The problem is that her emotional response causes her to reject him once more, because he's feeling claim that the first time you let her and you hurt me. Again, the situation wasn't fair, but this is how she handled it. And those feelings prevented her from realizing that, as we were already mentioned, she didn't express herself fully. Second, it will be worthwhile in this case. And yes, it is actually fixable, okay? But once more, she let her feelings control her behavior, and this time it didn't turn out well. This is the reason that it's crucial for you to comprehend the necessity of pursuing before reacting. And those feelings prevented her from realizing that she was already mentioned. She didn't express herself out fully. Second, it was worthwhile to pursue this. Yes, I'd say it would be worthwhile in this case. Yes, it is actually fixable, okay? But once more, she let her feelings control her behavior, and this time it didn't turn out well. This is the reason it's crucial for you to comprehend the necessity of pursuing before reacting and taking deep breath. However, returning to my earlier point, consider whether it's worthwhile and realize that if there was true love present, if this man was a man, it's okay if there were errors made, misunderstanding or misconceptions. But those issues can be resolved, no problem at all. Now, if you recognize a guy, it's not worth it. No, there wasn't any genuine love or connection there. It was unhealthy from the beginning. You always knew that he was the wrong choice, and so forth. If someone is serious, he might even be returning, but not even returning. Of course, we won't entertain that if he returns and still playing games, showing no signs of progress. I still want you to express yourself, even though you do not need to push things any further. But let's dissect this a little bit further, and right now, there's a lot to return to. Let's talk about how you assess the situation and determine that if it was worthwhile or repairable. So, if it's what's being decided, there are some things that I want you to think about right away. If you again decide that it is worthwhile and fixable, the first step will be, I like to add this as well, and because I feel as though I'm hearing some of you all in my spirit right now. It may be frightening, but it doesn't mean that it is any less worthwhile. Just because something seems challenging, it doesn't necessarily mean it isn't worthwhile. When I say something is worthwhile, I mean that there are real affection and a sense of connection between those two guys. This guy, is willing to make the necessary effort. Again, this is a man who is willing to acknowledge and correct his mistakes. And despite the fact that he may have made them. What I mean when I say that it's worthwhile is this. Yes, this is a relationship worth pursuing. But I'm aware that occasionally, because it can feel extremely threatening, because it can seem very challenging, and because all of additional outside noise, you might decide it's not worth it. So going back to where I found that there is worthwhile, that it can be fixed. Because it can seem very challenging, and because all of additional outside noise, you might decide it's not worth it. So going back, we have found that it is worthwhile and that it can be fixed. So first and foremost, be open-minded and voice all your concerns. Again, there is nothing wrong with being scared. There is nothing wrong with you saying, well, how could he really be sure I am making the right decision by determining this guy is worth it? And we can actually move forward. That's okay. It makes sense. Talk about those topics. You know, whether these dynamics or when starting from scratch. Confusion is what sabotages and kills potential relationships. Okay, the confusion that results from breakdown in communication and failure to comprehend how the other party is feeling. And when we are confused, confusion breeds chaos, which in turn breeds more anxiety, unease, and toxic energy, which then throws everything off. Therefore, it is crucial be open and honest about how we feel and our fears if you're trying to move forward and make amends to resolve everything else. What are the concerns? Discuss them openly. If the question is, how do I know I can trust you again after you did such and such? Then answer that. Let's talk about that, because I said, be sincere. Is a man worth it? He will be open to having these discussions. Because as I frequently say, a loving man wants to bring peace and charity. Those who don't want will cause stress and confusion. That much is true. So be honest while remaining open-minded instead of thinking, well, he'll never go for this. He'll never do this. He'll never be okay with that. Don't do that. Or he will never do that. He'll never do that. Refrain from doing these things. If so, allow him to present himself. Show that this is true. Let him demonstrate whether he will prove you wrong and act morally, or whether he will confirm your suspicions. But by talking about it and making it public, you're giving him the chance. Because if there is to be a positive step forward in getting things to work, then that is what will be required. The following is something else to really concentrate on. If you're deciding whether or not this is worthwhile, I've already said it, but I'll repeat it. If there really is a connection there, listen, I'm not going to come here and pressure people to try to work things out with someone that they don't know, since that seems to be incredibly pointless to me. However, when there's a connection, I'll push and encourage people to act. And now, some of you might be asking how we have got into this situation where he had to come back if there was a connection. How did we get to the point where we needed to make amends? Listen to me. I wish I could tell you all the stories of people who have had a connection but distance themselves from one another, sabotage their relationships, or when in some other way let fear, hurt, and whatever the lack of healing prevent them from being together. And for this reason, I vehemently support the idea of the right person, wrong time. Because there are many circumstances in which you might have met someone in this case. A man who is that guy, but regrettably, you two connected at the time when neither of you was emotionally prepared to handle the degree of vulnerability that connection demands, or to maintain the level of maturity needed for a successful relationship. Therefore, things are moving in the wrong direction. But because the two of you are bad at or wrong for one another, but because the two of you were at the time not right. And once more, I constantly hear that one of you saying, well, if it was the wrong time, how could he be the right one in my life, in my spirit? Why on earth will God allow this person to enter my life? Listen to, just because someone entered your life, it doesn't mean that you have to start a relationship with them right away. It actually, we will enter this relationship because that is what we want to do. Our attraction to someone, or our love for them, our desire for them, and our connection for them can blind us from taking the step back and saying, okay, maybe he will have this thing here right, but it's not time for us to really move forward in a romantic relationship. As a result, we frequently fail to allow ourselves to process the proper timing of things. So why does God bring us this person into my life, you ask? However, did God instruct you to accompany them at that time? Did God command you to pursue a romantic relationship at this particular time? If not, we obviously can't blame God for that. But regardless, things simply became out of place. But it's possible the key to return to the point of connection. I firmly believe that I won't rule out the possibility that occasionally the man who returns is the one who you have a genuine connection with and with whom you can have a wonderful relationship with. Well, we've come some additional points regarding that. Did God command you to pursue a romantic relationship at that particular time? If not, we obviously can't blame God for that. But regardless of this, things simply became out of place. But it's possible. The key is to return to the point of connection. I firmly believe that I won't rule out the possibility that occasionally the man who returns is the one you have genuine connection with and with whom you can have a wonderful relationship. We'll cover some additional points regarding that. But it's true that many of the people who return had no business being in your life in the first place and didn't require any entertainment in the beginning. However, don't discount the man with whom you truly connect. And then, you know there is no such other that we could talk about with this. But one more mistake you're going to make is being willing to heal and not being afraid to let him back in. If you decide that he's worth it and can be fixed, in fact, the two go hand in hand together. Like I said, these scenarios can be extremely frightening and frequent. We cut people off not because that there is no chemistry or because they weren't the right fit for us, but rather because you are too afraid to face the potential for further hurt, moving on, disappointment, and so on. Again, timing is crucial, and I've already mentioned this one before. And just because someone returned right now doesn't necessarily mean that this is the right moment. It's crucial to set aside the time for healing because you might need more time. Now, if this person is right for you and returns to your life, I would love you to have already recovered by then. But if you haven't, and the chance that now arises, don't think that you can skip that step and have a successful relationship with this man. Neglect the notion that you have a second chance. Yes, sir. Yes, I do love them. There is a connection. Proceed now, please. Since you did recover, you'll find yourself starting over again. Making this work connection will be difficult for you. Not a lot garbage can be thrown on top of a connection, but it cannot be destroyed. You can effectively muddy the waters and make it challenging to successfully maintain and sustain that relationship. Therefore, you must exercise caution and ensure that you play your part. For you, your general quality of life and your ability to heal, not just for the benefit of the potential relationship. After that healing, don't be reluctant to let him back. Again, in this situation, you must have faith in your instincts, your spirit, and your ability to communicate with God so that you and your partner can overcome the fears together. You must be open and honest about your fears. The only one way to make it work is to lay everything out on the table. I'm aware that this is a lot to take in and that it is difficult for those of you who haven't been in a similar situation. I've had to tell you the truth, and this is what has to happen. And once more, I don't want to see couples who should be together fail to make it work because all the obstacles, the unresolved trauma, the fears, and other problems that will get in the way. But let's change course. Now, because I say that I had to give you the chance that he might be the right guy, but let's assume that he isn't. Yes, he has consistently been the incorrect person. So now, they are unaware of the problem that cannot be solved. We can all agree that is not worth it. So if there has been decided, here are some of the things that you need to keep in mind. Don't let loneliness rule your life, first and foremost. Secondly, by all means, resist letting boredom and loneliness win. Because we frequently entertain others that we shouldn't because we currently have nothing better to do. Let's be honest. We are a little bored. We want some company again. We are lonely, whatever may be. You are even a little horny. Although this is an opportunity may present itself and you might have some needs that you like to be met. Do not let these needs drive you back into the arms of someone who will only make your life miserable, who will only worsen the situation, who will now develop a strong and healthy attachment to this individual because they don't belong. In light of this, you should ask yourself, is this worth it? After you have a better understanding of why. In step 1, I advise against reacting emotionally. Is this true? What should I do here? Do you know this? Why is this happening now? What opportunity does this give me exactly? I am good once you've realized that he's not the one for you. I resist the urge to involve in the wrong situation out of boredom, loneliness, or horniness. Release and release is the next thing to think about or to do in this regards. What exactly do I mean when I say release and release? This is essentially just as a restatement of what I've already said. You still want to air your grievances. Again, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people make is thinking there is no point of saying or expressing yourself fully because you decided that this person is not worth your time. The issue is this, that even if you truly at peace, it should cool that you manage to do this. However, if you are aware of any toxic energy that is still present in your heart, disappointment, betrayal, resentment, animosity, any of those as well, if there's anything that you wish you had said to them all, if you don't end up growing emotionally attached to these circumstances, and as you grow attached to the circumstances, you grow attached to the individual, and this has a lot of negative effects. So, even if he's the wrong guy, you still need to prepare to ensure that you are released everything. However, I've already said, release and release. Release your inner thoughts, release your words, and everything else that you need to express and the other than, okay, then release is us. This means you must let him go. The next point I want to make about this is to let him go and then lock all the doors, okay? Well, I let him go, but he won't let go. He keeps coming back, and I hear a lot of women say, mainly because you're letting him enter through the door. Yes, he might be banging on the door, yelling at it and trying to get inside. While you become emotionally worn out and defeated to the point where you finally allow the door to crack open just a bit and he pushes through it. Not even a dime can you give him? What word is that? Okay, you can give him any opportunity at all. You must delete the phone numbers and if necessary block the device. Get rid of all the social media. You must get rid of everything that might give this man a chance to disrupt your life again. Remove anything that could lead you astray and lead you to make the wrong choice. Now listen, if you're in a position where you can release and still use social media without getting upset, cool. Realizing your flaws of your troubled spots and prevent you from staying on the track, performing at your absolute best is actually the key. Eliminate those things that lock those doors and are previously stated, release him. Next, lock all the doors and prevent yourself from falling back into that situation. Alright, let's return to the major theme of the moment. I've already given you a few, but I also have a few more that I'd like to mention. Do not let your family and friends decide for you when this man returns. We've discussed your feelings, which included your fears and all the other things. However, I've observed that a lot of people decide whether or not to entertain someone based on the unwholesome influence of family and friends. Despite the fact that the advice may have been well intended, it can lead to more issues, and I've witnessed it in both directions. I've seen instances where a man should have never been allowed back, but perhaps a family member really liked him and felt that he would be best to give him another chance in the hopes that he will behave better this time. There's like so much they try to persuade you or make you feel guilty into giving this man another chance, which on the other hand, I've witnessed circumstances in which you ought to be entertaining this man, but instead, no, or forget him, and yet they're still clinging to the perhaps certain what's coming to me right now, like a lot of times as people or as women. We tell our friends and family a lot of negative situations, but we don't give them the full picture of the positive ones. Therefore, the outsiders, the family and the friends have more skewed negative perception than a positive one. When that person re-enters your life, or even when they is in your life, because you don't always share the highlights. But since we tend to share a lot of information, we are angry at our feeling a certain way, and it's important to be aware of that. How can you expect them to give you a fair, balanced opinion if we know that we have given them more ammunition from the negative than the positive? In that circumstance, how can we expect them to offer you impartial insight and advice? And they may already be biased despite their good intention because they are family members who love you. In addition, their bias may stem from their own personal experiences. Many people try to put themselves in the situation and they basically tell you not to because, well, I wouldn't deal with this. However, since they are not you, it is not the same as you. Overall, just exercise caution because witnessing family and friends persuade people to make bad decisions. You must ensure this and leave. You must approach this situation more intelligently. And I'll give you some things that you think about when trying to figure it out without using friends and family. If you want to consult a professional, that's fine too. At least with a professional, there is an unbiased opinion. They can now get a more complete picture than the relationship and the situation rather than just basing it on the negative things they have had over time, alright? I believe that the consulting a counselor or a coach will have a better chance of receiving advice that is more precise and healthy. Furthermore, it's not that your friends and family can't give you the good advice. You just need to use caution when doing so. So, be cautious about letting them to influence your choices. I've already mentioned the other thing to do when he returns. So, this will just be a quick point. Do not follow your fear. Again, decisions should be made through understanding and peace with the situation, rather than fear of the situation, even if this person is not for you and the door needs to be shut. By thinking things through carefully, by letting things out again, by healing, that we can arrive at the same conclusion. And in my opinion, that's a better course of action, because if you let fear to rule, fear has the power to influence you in a variety of ways. It can make you blind to reality and prevent you from seeing things clearly. It can also make you to overlook the current situation, the potential deeper meaning, okay? So I'll say it again. Sometimes these things occur and the reasons that we don't fully comprehend at that time. And if we don't fully allow ourselves to divulge deeper into our spirit and ourselves to receive guidance, we might miss the mark. And we may find ourselves stuck in a negative cycle because we aren't learning the necessary lesson. So being wary of allowing fear to overpower you. We have looked and what to do if he returns back, and this has enabled you to make the right decisions. But this is not all that you need to know, as you also require to watch the video. If he says that he's not ready for a relationship, tell him this on this specific channel and keep winning. Until next time, have a good one, stay blessed, and catch you in the next one.